let's talk about a sound. A sound born in a rainy city that completely washed away the shiny, glittery 80s and changed music, well, pretty much forever. We're diving into the story of grunge. You know that feeling, right? When you're looking at something or listening to something and it just feels a little too polished, a little too clean, and maybe, just maybe, not totally real. Well, back in the 1980s, that's what a lot of the most popular music was like. We're talking big hair, super shiny clothes, and music that was produced to be absolutely perfect. It was a ton of fun, for sure, but some people started getting tired of it. They were looking for something else. And that something different started to bubble up in a place you might not expect, Seattle. Way up in the Pacific Northwest, far away from the music hubs like LA and New York, a brand new scene was starting to form. You see, the whole goal was just to make music that felt honest. These local musicians weren't trying to be huge pop stars. They just wanted to create a sound that sounded like their lives, a sound that was a little messy, a little raw, but packed with genuine emotion. But here's the thing. Grunge wasn't just about the music. It was a whole vibe, a whole attitude. So to really get it, we need to break down two things, how it sounded and how it looked. Okay, so at its heart, what is grunge? Think of it like a recipe. You take the rebellious, fast energy of punk rock and you mix it with the slow, powerful, heavy sound of heavy metal. But the most important ingredient was that it felt raw. It was supposed to sound like a real band playing right in front of you, not some perfectly tweaked studio recording. So, how did they get that signature heavy sound? Well, a big part of it is something called distortion. It's that fuzzy, kind of gritty, buzzing sound you hear on the electric guitar. And they did it on purpose. It gave the music all of its power and its attitude. I love this comparison on the slide. It's like a ripped pair of jeans for your ears. Not clean, but cool.
Now, here is the secret weapon for so many classic grunge songs. It's all about dynamics. They would start off with a really quiet, maybe even mumbled verse. It kind of pulls you in close. And then, bam, the chorus just explodes with this huge, loud wave of energy and emotion. It's such a powerful trick.
And the look that went with the music was just as iconic. But this wasn't some style cooked up by fashion designers. Nope. It was just practical. It's cold and rainy in Seattle, so you wear layers. Flannel shirts, heavy boots, old jeans. These were just cheap, warm clothes you could find at a thrift store. It was basically an anti-fashion statement that accidentally became one of the biggest fashion trends of the decade. Okay, so we've got the sound, we've got the look, but who were the people, the bands that were actually making this music? Well, a handful of groups from Seattle are the ones who took this little local secret and blasted it out to the entire world. But before we even get to the bands, we have to talk about a small, independent record label called Sub Pop. These guys were brilliant. They found all this amazing local talent, and they marketed it all together. They created this idea of a cool, authentic Seattle scene. And it worked. They proved a small label could totally change the game. And the band that would take that Seattle scene and launch it into the stratosphere was Nirvana. Led by Kurt Cobain, Nirvana was just a perfect storm. The music was simple, it was raw, but it was so unbelievably catchy. And when their song Smells Like Teen Spirit hit the radio in 1991, it wasn't just another hit. It was a cultural atom bomb. It single-handedly took grunge from these tiny clubs and put it on top of the charts all over the world, almost overnight. But Nirvana was not the only giant to come out of Seattle. You also had this stadium-rocking force that was Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam's sound was a little different, maybe a little more connected to classic rock from the 70s. And they were fronted by Eddie Vedder, who had this incredibly powerful voice and was just amazing on stage. They also became famous for standing up for their fans. They actually went to battle with ticket companies over high prices. And what's wild is they are still one of the biggest bands in the world, selling out stadiums today. All right, next up, one of the true OGs of the entire scene, a band that was there from the very, very beginning, Soundgarden. Soundgarden had been around since the start. Their sound was heavier and, honestly, a little more complex. They would use these really cool, unusual rhythms that made their songs totally unique. And right in the middle of it all was singer Chris Cornell, who had one of the most incredible voices in rock history. They really proved that this heavy, raw music could also be really smart and artistic. And finally, let's talk about the band that really explored the darker, heavier side of grunge, Alice in Chains. Yeah, Alice in Chains was different. Their sound was way darker, almost like heavy metal. Their big secret weapon was these amazing and kind of haunting vocal harmonies between their two singers. It gave their music this totally unique, sludgy, and powerful feel that brought together fans from both alternative rock and heavy metal. So, with these four massive bands leading the charge, a sound that started in a few basements in rainy Seattle clubs was about to completely take over the world.
And you have to see how fast this all went down. I mean, for years, it was just a local secret. Then, in 1991, someone lit the fuse. And for the next 3 years, from 92 to 94, grunge wasn't just a type of music, it was the music. It was everywhere, on the radio, on TV, in movies, everywhere.
But here's the most important part. Its impact was so much bigger than just music. It really became a cultural movement, especially for young people. It basically sent a message that you didn't have to be perfect, you didn't have to be polished. It was suddenly cool to just be yourself, even if you were a little messy or different. It changed everything.
Now, like any huge cultural explosion, the peak of grunge mania eventually calmed down. But its influence, that never really went away. So let's talk about why we're still talking about it today.
You can still hear the echoes of grunge all over the place. That whole quiet verse, loud chorus thing, countless bands still use that today. The whole idea that songs should be honest and raw, that's a huge deal now. And yeah, you've seen it. Every few years, flannel shirts and combat boots are suddenly cool again. But maybe the biggest thing grunge did was prove that art doesn't have to be perfect to be amazing. It can be messy and still be beautiful. So when you boil it all down, this entire movement was about one thing: being authentic. It was a reaction against everything that felt fake. And that leaves us with a really interesting question, doesn't it? In our world today, with social media filters and perfectly planned everything, what does being real actually look like?